All right, let's get started today.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for investing your time for our session. We'll try to do our best to provide the best ROI of your time. So the topic of today's session is a path to move to a composable developer journey, because we all are looking towards that. So why we chose this topic? Because why it's important? Because if you know the why, what and how is very easy to figure out. So we have been working on Sitecore industry for more than a decade, and we have seen the Sitecore technology getting upgraded every year. Like we started from the DMS, OMS. Anyone knows the full form of DMS? Yeah, so all those days we have seen, and now then Sitecore started adding X towards all the products, like Experience Platform, XDB, XConnect. We have seen that time, and then from there we are moving towards headless, which is a whole new world. Technology has evolved from legacy to MVC to SXA, and we all have learned then and adopted that. Because when we started to move from legacy to MVC, we all were excited that MVC is a great thing, and now we will be able to do that. Then we had SXA, and the migration from MVC to SXA was easy because it was still a backend technologies. The ASP.NET and all those core was still there. But now the headless is a new piece. And we need to make sure that the intent of the session is, by end of the session, you will be able to understand what technologies I need to learn to be a good composable developer. We are not talking rocket science in this session. We are talking very basics, because when you work on the technology for a long time, you talk a lot of complex things. But the intent is the people who are still new to the technology, in the Sitecore technology, they should be easy to understand few terminologies, and the journey towards the Sitecore learning should be easy.
Thank you, Kiran. So, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So, myself, Kiran Patil. I've been working on Sitecore for 13 years now. 11 times Sitecore Technology MVP. Working at Horizontal as a group director of technology. I've been working for Horizontal for 9 years now.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sheetal, and I am the Global Vice President for Horizontal. I oversee a team of about 250 developers. And in my role, one of the most important things is human capital. And the premise of human capital is that constant upgradation of their skills. So in my role, it becomes inevitable that with the change in technology, how do we make sure that the teams and the human capital we have is upgrading themselves, hence this session. And I hope we'll cover as much as possible, but I'd like to make sure that we leave some time at the end for questions. End of the day, this is for the development community, and we would like to share some learnings along the way. As we saw this shift from monolithic to composable, as Kiran mentioned, everyone is talking about what is XM Cloud, how technology changed. But what about the teams? What about the developers? Like, how do they adapt to this change? And what is the path? And there's so many questions there. I don't say that I have solved everything, but we have made an attempt and we have seen it working. And I would like to share some of those learnings today. So, but before that, we'd like to, I'd like to mention a little bit about horizontal digital. And it's important to mention about this is for two reasons. One is we as a company, we are heavily invested in Sitecore. We only do Sitecore. So just imagine a change from a monolithic to composable has drastic impacts on the business operations. And we're still married to Sitecore, very much committed, but it becomes even more important to figure out how are we changing the course of our business and our people to deliver the same stellar experiences. And a lot of you are working in similar fields at consultancies or at client locations, but more importantly, it's the marriage to Sitecore we have. It's the innate belief we have on the platform that it is the right platform for our customers and trying to make the best solutions out of it. Before moving too deep into it, we would like to know a little bit more about you. I want you to open up your cell phones, scan this QR code. It's a little quiz just to know the audience today. If the QR code is not working, you can certainly open up your browser, go to menti.com and enter that code.
Yeah, when you open menti.com, you will see the questions. We just want to know the audience. And make sure that you submit once you select the option, because that's important.
All right, I see a couple of more phones up, so I'll give probably 15 more seconds. I think we'll get there. All right. Which type of DXP approach you're using today, and a lot of them are on monolithic. Perfect. This session is geared for you. And I would like to say that even from a customer ecosystem, about 65-70% of them are monolithic, intend to stay on monolithic for a period of time, which is an important statement. So monolithic is not yet going anywhere. All in one, monolithic, same terms. So I think that's good. The large part of our audience is still working on monolithic's platform. Which rendering technology your current Sitecore implementation is using? If you're working on multiple implementation, talk about the majority. If it is one implementation, talk about it. And I think it's just going to.
It's not about MVC now. It's good. Oh, okay. SXA is picking up.
I should
no one uses XSLT?
XSLT rendering? Yeah. Awesome. Here.
Okay. So MVC is the winner in this one.
Somewhat. And then that's interesting. What's your role? And then here, if you want classification between front-end and back-end, front-end is UI heavy, but if you have a lot of JavaScript experience, I would like you to mark as full stack. But back-end is ASP.NET Developer. Born and bred in ASP.NET Microsoft world. That's what we have been doing a lot. And the biggest challenge, is for the back-end development. In my opinion, the drastic shift, not saying that back-end developers now need to understand UI design and do HTML, CSS, because that's a science in its own. But more importantly, understanding modern JavaScript framework, the move from C# to TypeScript. Those are the changes which are not easy changes, and this change is something. This is why I think this presentation was born. So, but I think we have quite a few of full stack people over here too. So that's interesting. Have you already started exploring JavaScript frameworks? Necessarily has to be Next.js, but Angular, Vue, any kind of a JavaScript framework.
Oh, that's good. We are moving towards that. The people who are planning to start, you'll have some takeaways from this session. So that's great.
Beautiful. And how do you feel about the change in Sitecore from monolithic to composable? And it's an important question because it impacts lives, in my opinion. Careers which have been decade-long. Imagine that you are a decade-long ASP.NET developer, all that experience, and all of a sudden you're like, yep, I have to move to a different programming language, start from ground zero. What does it feel? So I think it's important to understand where it is going, and I think we have really a good balance of people who are excited and too early to say, and I was in that too early to say category probably 7-8 years ago, and I'm pretty excited about now, especially if you guys have watched the latest Gartner report on digital experience platforms. A lot of the people say that, hey, Sitecore is in leadership quadrant, great, but hey, it has moved down a little bit. But you have to understand that evaluation of Sitecore as a DXP platform was based on XM Cloud. XM Cloud is a brand new product. It didn't even finish a complete year. So from that perspective, how many organizations, when they launch new products, are going to be in that quadrant? A lot of people just see that, oh my God, the dot is coming down, it's still in leadership quadrant. How many of you seen the Gartner report for DXP, this latest? Fantastic. And I'm pretty sure that you might have asked the question why Sitecore is dipping down. But more details from my side is that it's a new product. One of the prime criteria for Gartner is how many Fortune 500 companies are using that platform in production. And when the answer is not that heavy, you get scored low. But give it another 6, 8, and 12 months, and as soon as you have more customers, that's going to skyrocket, pretty sure. And being a SaaS platform, the upgrade is happening. A lot of new features are happening. We're anticipating a June, July release with a lot of new features. Dave mentioned yesterday, too, that it's coming up with a lot of much-needed features. I think it's really going to be glorious. And I think the big part of it is this community. And I think that's important. That's where we're going to focus on today. Awesome. We're going to quickly switch to our presentation back. And I think I love this quote from Charles Darwin. It says that it's not the strongest of the species that survives, not the intelligent ones, the one which are adaptable to change. And I think it's an important thing. I think I would like to mention a few things here that, as I have been in the situation where I am, where I'm overseeing about 250 odd team members, one of the things is that humans always like to be in certainty. They would like to know what's happening, how it is happening. And sometimes living in uncertainty is a natural reality. So as long as you are focusing on what's next and how to adapt, and look around you and look at the ecosystem. As developers, always the thing in mind, even customers, clients, every one of us, we want to be with the next best thing. We want to join the bandwagon where it is the next best thing, and I want to be on that one. This change for Sitecore has proven to be large, necessary, but it's more critical and important step in the path to Composable. And I think it's more importantly, I want to make sure that we put in the emphasis saying that this change is going to be inevitable. The sooner we adapt, and from Sitecore perspective, we were specialists. 2 years ago, you're a Sitecore developer, you are a specialist. Today, we want to be generalist with a niche in some sort of specialty. A generalist is more broadly using their skills on not only one platform, but multiple platforms. Because today, or even yesterday in monolithic platforms, if you worked on a Sitecore platform, 99% of the time, you worked on Solar Search. 99%. You worked on Lucene or Azure Search. Now, those options are going to change for you. Customers are not going to be on the same composable product for all of their suite, which means that you have to have a broader perspective on how you design and develop things, still trying to have a basic notation of what you're going to develop. And that's what is going to keep you going. At Horizontal, we always follow this golden triangle, or people, process, tools. I use tools variously as technology. In my presentation, I'm going to slowly touch upon 3 key aspects. People, obviously, development team members, and how they evolved from monolithic to composable. Process, development process, how we used to do and how are we doing it now, and what is that change means, what is the evolution of that process, and obviously the technology shift. And as long as we get a right medium of people, process, and technology, I think we are going to land in the right spot. So obviously, when we talk about the monolithic, we at Horizontal, we had broadly classified our teams into back-end development and front-end development. Back-end development, pretty much organically, they were used to doing everything related to Sitecore. Create items, create standard values, templates, renderings, and then, back-end development, component renderings, controller renderings. And then, obviously, front-end is more responsible for UI, accessibility, atomic design, and things like that. And there was a really, really good separation. Now, was the workflow the smoothest? No. It is always, revolved back and forth, back and forth. There was some efficiency we could have gained, but then there was always a level of separation. How many of the front-end developers, or how many of the developers here today, in my opinion, front-end developers never had a local Sitecore installation? They never used to even have that. No, I want to work on Mac. I don't want Sitecore installation. They used to work on a static side of the site, and that's going to change pretty quickly. So that was the gap where the community was more divided. Even organizationally, all my front-end team would like to sit with the UX team. And all the back-end developers, DevOps, QA, they were on this side of the zone. The divide was even on the sitting ideology, even lunches were separate. And I think the community is now getting to get closer. A lot of interchange is happening. Some people are going to go there, some people are going to come here. But one of the things quickly we find out is what was the process and how it changed. So I would like Kiran to touch a little bit more on the process. What was the process in monolithic?
Sure. Thanks, Sheetal. So yeah, in the monolithic days, as Sheetal mentioned, the back-end, front-end, a lot of back and forth was happening because the back-end developer will create Sitecore templates, renderings, layouts, and all the back-end logic, like invoking the APIs, integrations, and the front-end developer will kind of provide the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and jQuery, and then that will be integrated. A lot of tight coupling was there, and you can see in this process, we have front-end, back-end almost kind of same working together to complete the project. And obviously on the project, you'll have the similar kind of strength as well to complete the project and make it a successful project. There are some technologies which, unfortunately, we have to let go because Sitecore is letting it go in XM Cloud in the whole composable world. XSLT, C#, web forms. We all learned these technologies. We spent a lot of time. How many of you remember the SIF? We spent a lot of time figuring out SIF, setting up the environment, took a lot of time figuring it out. XConnect, we also spent a lot of time on production, clearing the XConnect. We were excited about MongoDB. We all learned MongoDB, but now all those things have to be sunset. That's a part of technology. You are a lifetime student when you're in technology. So nothing bad about it, but we all have to kind of forget these technologies. Again, few technologies are still going to be there. The core Sitecore framework, the fundamentals like items, templates, renderings, it has not changed. The content editor, all those things are still there. The approach, how you integrate that with the Sitecore has changed a little bit.
Thank you, Kiran. I know this is an eyesore here, and I don't mean to, you to read all of this, but I want to make sure that the technology landscape has evolved drastically. And obviously, if you looked at the Sitecore's, kind of product set, they talk about the content cloud and the engagement cloud and the commerce cloud. Here I'm taking a little bit of a more of a developer sense, just understanding like developers kind of knew from bottom to top, like almost everything of it. If you look at the content, back in the day you have, even today, I shouldn't say back in the day, experience platform, predominantly content management. 80% of at least our customers just used Sitecore for content management. Barely 5% of them understood what personalization is. And almost seldom there was someone who could do, okay, I'm just going to create an XConnect profile and take that data into Power BI and do reporting. Rare. So which means that the crux of Sitecore is sitting on the CMS platform, and which is the only lasting product. Every other product has been acquired in the recent years, and that's precisely the reason why. The experience part of it was in Sitecore. Personalization, A/B testing, all of that. The commerce, obviously, Sitecore Experience Commerce. We don't want to talk more about it. Integration, that was a key piece. A lot of the time, Sitecore developers, didn't realize or understand that the power of existing Sitecore XP to integrate with third-party system via API, using Sitecore modules, using different types of frameworks, it was just easy, very, very easy. And it was just a second-hand notation. And that made us very powerful. Like any kind of thing, and most of the times, any site which needed dynamic data, I think the integration layer was pretty strong. So we're going to talk about how it changed. And obviously delivery, majority of us that was on-prem, then came infrastructure as a service, then platform as a service, pretty much on Azure, but a little bit on AWS as well. But when you talk about like how things just move to this or are going to move, what we have to understand is that things have now evolved into its own independent component. I can say with utmost confidence that the two pillars required for most developers to succeed, or at least to start with, and I'll reiterate, the two most important pillars are going to be content and are going to be delivery. Content and delivery are going to be the key aspects of understanding Composable. Everything else is going to come along the way. You will find time to learn that, trust me. Which means that when you look at content, XM Cloud, Content Hub 1, and Content Hub Ops and DAM, collectively, that is going to be the backbone. That is going to be 75% of your work. And then you have to go on the way to delivery, where you have Experience Edge, front-end application framework, Next.js, and then obviously a deployment platform called Vercel. If you take that and this, the core part of your work is already done. Now, learning about search, personalize, CDP. If you are into commerce, like learning Order Cloud, sure, along the way will come. But if I'm looking at the customer ecosystem, I'm looking at the amount of work developers are going to have. Majority of the work is going to land in the content aspect, and obviously knowing how to deliver that work is going to be critical. I'm not saying any of the others are not important, but if I am to focus, I just have limited time before I have to change myself. I can't boil the ocean. That's where I'm going to start. And this is why it gets even more important to understand what pieces are what. In my role, for the past year and a half, I don't do any production level coding. I'm involved. I'm still in the community. We do POCs, but I am still more a strategic guidance and directions for our customers and for our development teams on training programs. And one of the things, which was clear that, there are so many nuances. People start talking about React and then Vercel and then static side generation and the server side generation, which is what, edge-based personalization. There's just too many terminologies. Sometimes I just have to take a step back and say, okay, where do I start? Fundamentally, that's important. I have to start in the basics. I have to learn the basics. Someone said, oh, should I go on a 3-month React training program because that's the foundation for Next.js? No. You have to learn React enough so that you can learn how to build websites and components on Next.js. You still need to understand routing. You still need to understand image optimization. You still need to understand caching. A lot of the fundamentals here are that you just need to know what you need to learn at what pace to get there. And again, this model has worked for us, and I have examples to show. Doesn't mean that will work for you, because every person has a different set of experience. My intent is to just cater and show that. So again, from here, we're going to move this, and the intent is that any of these boxes, even in content or experience or commerce, could be replaced by other technology, and that's where the initial challenge comes. So certainly, Composable gives more agility, more options for customers to find different products. But again, natively, the integration piece, which we seldom don't talk about, is going to be still a thing. Like, how do you integrate? If you talk about Sitecore Connect, predominantly that's an automation integration framework, which means it's going to pass the data back and forth. It does not remove the need of creating custom modules, just translation. Like, how do you do translation? Sure, Connect is going to be a part of it, but there's going to be innately more work for developers to figure out how are you going to do simple things like that. So obviously, I want to start quickly get into Composable. And in Composable, the notion of a front-end and back-end developer, for the context of this presentation, I have still made it the same. I have just changed their T-shirts. They have to come to a central point. They have to come here. So let's start taking example of a back-end developer, predominantly ASP.NET, MVC, SXA, Smart. Has done a little bit of Sitecore JS, started learning Next.js. If that person wants to be a stellar Sitecore developer or a full-stack engineer, the path is much more stronger. Because JavaScript frameworks is still relatively, based on object-oriented, Typescript, ES6, things like that are still relatively important. But going all the way and doing front-end HTML, CSS, there's a huge science around it. So the path of full-stack engineer is still long, hard if you don't have at least cumulative 3 to 5 years experience of HTML and CSS. If you're starting brand new, like some of us are, like how many backend developers have written CSS and HTML for their websites? Great. So you can classify yourself as more of full stack and you can do everything. But when you operate at a bigger scale, there is still a lot of development. I come from India and I came to the United States 16 years ago. And, I became a developer out of necessity, not because out of passion. And that's a harsh reality. And when you become out of necessity, you try to identify the need and try to emulate yourself to fit the need, right? And a lot of you are because of passion, and that's great, that's awesome, that's privilege in my opinion, and I didn't have that kind of privilege. So when we were born out of necessity and say that, okay, now we have to figure something out, innately what I try to understand is, I exist to solve problems. I exist to solve problems, I exist to figure out what my customers need, and how do I do it the best in the marketplace. And that needs me to figure out, okay, the slow nuance is that now my teams are going to have newer roles. There's going to be a Sitecore engineer. Parlance is a JavaScript engineer as well. There's going to be a UI developer. Their own focus is accessibility, atomic design, breaking, making sure the responsive tablets, they're really good at it. Then there are going to be full stack engineers who are going to do master of all, right? If I do this opt-in programs, people can choose their career paths and they can fit in. So again, traditionally, will I still have a back-end and front-end? Yeah. A Sitecore engineer is going to write my Next.js components, is going to still create all the templates, items, all of that, still going to learn Sitecore Connect, still going to integrate. And I'll have my UI developer just focused on UI development. Now, is there an amalgamation of the roles? Sure. There is a central line which we can draw and say that full-stack engineers, they don't want to touch Sitecore. I have them in my team. They said, I want to be a full-stack engineer, but I'm not going to touch Sitecore. I'm still going to need a Sitecore engineer for that. So there are different options and roles which we can fit in, and that's where it starts with, okay, how do you start a Sitecore project? How do you define that process? So Kiran's going to talk a little bit about the composable process, how it changes from a role perspective and a process perspective.
Sure, thanks. So you can see, if you can try to remember the last diagram, you had the backend developer and front-end developer the same. But in the composable world, especially in the headless world, the backend developer's role is very limited at this point of time, because as a backend developer, you just create the JSON rendering, create the data modeling, and just send the JSON, and then your front-end developer will do the core stuff. What we are trying to do at Horizontal, we are trying to upskill the backend developers where they understand TypeScript, React, Next.js, so they can offload some of the work from front-end to backend. As of now, we did one project recently where we had 3 front-end developers and only 1 back-end developer, which was different earlier because you just need 1 front-end developer and the 3 back-end developers are kind of creating. So it's a big shift, but we cannot hire a lot of back-end developers, like front-end developers. At the same time, we cannot fire all the back-end developers. So we have to make sure that they learn something, and then we still have the same people because they have been working for Horizontal for a long time, and then we give them a path where they can fit into this composable world. Again, there are a lot of new technologies we have to learn, and there are a few technologies we'll talk in the upcoming slides. The Next.js, TypeScript, C#, that's something is still going to be there. React, Tailwind, Vercel, Storybook, Node. We'll talk about that in detail in upcoming slides. And then a lot of other technologies like XM Cloud, Pages, authoring API, that's something you will learn as you go. So now, from monolithic to a composable DXP architecture, Sitecore has divided these things into 3 parts. The content cloud, where you have all the main products which helps you have the right content. And content is super important to make sure that you have the best experience for the customers. And the engagement cloud provides more personalized experience. And the
Commerce Cloud.
Commerce Cloud is all about Sitecore Order Cloud and Sitecore Discover. And then on top of that, Sitecore is trying to build a unified portal where you'll have a single platform where you can integrate not only Sitecore products, in the future, the other products as well. And that's the beauty of composable world. So now, in this section, we'll be talking about the key technologies which you as a backend developer need to learn to survive in this composable world. So we'll talk about that technology in high level. At the same time, there are some resources which we have identified or used for our own purpose, which we would like to share with you. At the same time, this is not the exhaustive list. If there are more learnings, we have an approach where we'll share how you can share your learnings as well. Because we like to make this community-based, not a couple of people-based. So the first and core thing which you need to know is Jamstack. It stands for JavaScript API and Markup. So Jamstack is a philosophy. It's not implementation. The headless and everything is kind of an implementation. So think of Jamstack as a pattern, and headless is an implementation. And that confuses a lot of people because when I started, what is the difference between Jamstack and JSS or headless? That's the difference. So this is a philosophy, and this philosophy has changed how the whole technology world is going to work. And it's the change is for good. So Jamstack is an architectural approach that decouples the web experience layer from data, business logic, and improves the flexibility. I'll just move here. So we all have seen the monolithic world where your client is there, like think of that as a browser. When the request goes, it will go to application server directly, or if you have some caching, it will use that cache, or it has to request the database and CMS. And obviously, every time the request comes and you have to generate the page on the fly, it takes time. That's something, and at the same time, CPU and resources as well. But in this whole Jamstack world, you will have CDN microservices, and that's what is also known as edge servers. And CDN stands for Content Delivery Network, where you have a lot of servers delivered across the globe to provide less latency to all your end users. The benefit of this is, your first benefit is performance, because your pages are not getting generated on the fly. They are cached at the edge level. So when your user is from Japan, they are seeing the page from the CDN server. Second thing is security, because your server is not directly exposed to the world. It is behind all this private network. At the same time, only the content, the CDNs are exposed to the world. So it's a security. At the same time, scalability. Spinning up a lot of CD servers is a complicated task. We all know that. And obviously, even queue cache clearing, that complicates things. But with this CDN thing, you can do the infinite scalability with ease as well. At the same time, save the cost. And then the resources to understand Jamstack is the jamstack.org. It's a very nice platform. And then this Netlify white paper is really awesome. It talks about why Jamstack makes sense and why it is important for the world. The first technology which we recommend the backend developers to learn is Typescript. How many of you know, have you started already learning Typescript?
Good.
Does anyone know who designed Typescript?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's
and
right.
then the designer of TypeScript is same person who designed C#, Anders. So he designed C# and he designed TypeScript. So somehow we have some connection with that guy. He's building something good for us. So TypeScript designed by Microsoft, and it's a superset of JavaScript. So basically, JavaScript is a functional programming language. And when you create the more scalable solutions, the functional programming language, it was hard to manage that. So to solve that challenge, we all need to, obviously object-oriented programming is there to solve those kind of challenges. And TypeScript is using all the ES6 concepts. ES6 stands for ECMAScript 6, which is mainly designed for the class-based programming. So TypeScript has been designed based on those principles, and the things available like let, keyword, arrow functions, all those are part of ES6. The benefits of TypeScript is type safety, because obviously finding an error at compile time is much less complicated than finding at runtime. At the same time, all the benefits of OOPS concepts like maintainability, reusability, working across the team is very easy when you have the separation of concerns, and better developer experience. Because I, as a backend developer, if I have to write JavaScript, I'll write it. But if I have to write complicated JavaScript, I'll not like it. I'll do it, but I'll not like it. But if I have TypeScript, I'll use the class-based concepts, which I have been doing in the C# world, and that makes my transition from C# world to a TypeScript world very easy. So we all recommend, these are the requests, the resources which you should use. The TypeScriptLang.org is the main website which has been managed by Microsoft. It has good tutorials and documents. There are some cheat sheets available there, so you can remember the key concepts. And then the whole W3 schools is always good to learn something new which is related to the front-end technologies.
So then, obviously, using TypeScript as one of the foundation, and I think there are going to be three terms I'm going to be talking about: as React as a platform, Next.js as a framework, and Vercel as a deployment platform. And a lot of the times, it's confusing that React can be used to build web application. And the answer is yes, you can. But predominantly, it's in the simplest terms. It's a JavaScript library used to build components, small pieces of components. A component could be as granular as you can think. The beauty of that is that can be reusable. Obviously, you can create JSX components. And fundamentally, React is a library that can let you build components, but that's it. It stops there. But there's much more to design and develop a web application, routing, data fetching, deployment, caching at the edge level, cache clearing, generating static site. And most of the time, if you build a CRA, which is a React application, I think a lot of the processing happens on the client side, which means the load on the client side browser becomes heavier, which means then that starts to become a little bit more slower because you have to load everything. And that's where fundamentally Next.js came into play. If you are a developer, understanding React at the fundamental level is important. Do you need to be a pro level for React? No, not necessary. Fundamentally, you need to understand what React is. How do you build components in React is important. Obviously, TypeScript is the foundation. And for that, we have these resources. And the idea with these resources is that this presentation is not going to be the exhaustive list. So we're going to certainly share at the end a GitHub repository with what we feel is the right set of content, and then we're going to go a little bit more detail in typing the chapters and the progress you have to make, sharing some of our learning modules internally. But at least to get started, I think we'll share this presentation right after in GitHub, and then also we are going to have every topic, like what did we pass, and then hopefully we can answer questions in that GitHub to make sure it's more community driven. That's how Next.js was formed. Next.js is it's a framework which is built on React, but it builds on server side. And what that means is that along with just its speeds, yesterday if you heard Vercel presentation, they mentioned that developers who wants to define their moment of inspiration, right? Like from development to production, how do I speed track that? Imagine back in the day, setting up production servers, migrating content, making sure you're doing security hardening, make sure your load balancers are working, making sure that everything is buttoned up, make sure that your /Sitecore pages, your 404 pages, your cache is clearing, then there is no partial cache clearing, and then we created modules to do partial cache clearing, and then the region is not supported, and then something happens. Like, developers just build the component, but there is a long story. It's almost like a movie after that. Vercel and Next.js cuts that everything. With a click of a button, you have your production environment. It's sort of a black box. Initially you start feeling very weird because you don't know, you don't have much control. Like what's happening? I want to do something about it. I want to do these things, but you just won't have much control. And that's for good. You will have control at some point. But what I'm trying to say here is that a lot of the things which required specialized skill sets now have been automated. And Next.js it has traditionally two approaches, static site generation and server-side rendering. And yes, we were talking about at edge how dynamically components can be rendered. I think performance is hugely good impact. And Next.js has a lot of community support, guys. It's like a lot of libraries and templates are available for you to get started. There are a lot of different patterns, and I feel that a lot of big organizations around you are using Next.js in some form or fashion. So I think this is one where you have to invest your time. Obviously, after learning TypeScript, a little bit of React, but majority of the time, what we have told our teams to spend is Next.js, build a sample application. And do you have to start learning everything together? No, you can have independently learn how to build a Next.js application, and we're going to talk about how do you mix Sitecore with it, how does JSS come to play, how does editing work, how does Sitecore pages work. But fundamentally, if you understand how Next.js works, build a simple application with a few components and push it out on Vercel. It's free, sign up. That's going to be a first baby step. About a week and a half, 2 weeks tops, if you can invest 2 to 3 hours a day, 2 to 3 and a week, you'll have a Next.js application, and that is going to help you terminology, understand SSG, SSR, caching, fetching, image optimization, a lot of different things, and we're going to talk about enterprise application, how they need to manage. For me, I think a couple of these are like solid. The first one, like Next.js, getting started, amazing tutorial, and I think that will get you the landing and the footsteps you need to make it. And then obviously there's a couple of other links which we're going to post here. But Next.js was designed by Vercel, which is obviously a technology partner. And Vercel is nothing but a cloud platform for deploying and pushing out application on their edge network. And one of the biggest thing is we don't have to worry about scalability. Don't have to worry about failover locations. You don't have to worry about replication of assets. And it's just beautiful that how easy it is for us to connect to your GitHub repository, push up a Next.js application, and there you go. It's in the internet. And every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks, you see upgrades to the platform. There's a lot of new features coming up. And I feel that just based on the popularity and the platform, Vercel is going to be one of the best match platforms for deploying Sitecore applications. Sure, you can still use Azure Blob Storage, Azure Static Apps, Netlify, other CDNs. You may have to do a lot of different work there. But Vercel, so far, what we see has been amazing. Sure, there are differences between Pro version and Enterprise version. 90% of use cases, Pro is good. $25 a developer a seat. You have 5 developers, $125 a month. Beautiful, priceless how it is. But then there are further details on how to design and develop for enterprise applications. So we won't get into that, but Vercel, I don't think you need to learn much about Vercel. You just need to sign up and count and push. As long as you're building a Next.js application, TypeScript, React, Vercel, they'll all follow the pursuit with each other. That's the fundamental stuff. But if you try to build a website with XM Cloud, it just becomes a little bit longer journey. First start with building a simple application, and then we move on to Sitecore-related suite of products.
Awesome. The second technology which we need to learn is JSS. JSS is nothing but a framework built by Sitecore, which makes your mainly the front-end, back-end developers' journey towards this whole JavaScript framework, integration, data fetching journey easy. That's what is all about JSS framework. There are different ways to do a JSS integration, like React, Next.js, Vue, Angular, whatever you like. But Sitecore's main push is towards Next.js. They're going to heavily invest on that. And they also have a partnership with Vercel. So if you want to get the best experience and support, you use the Next.js with that. So the benefits, I'll not go into detail because he's showing some cards as well. But there are some resources available which you can use, especially the Sitecore doc site is very good to get started with the JSS. The XM Cloud, I don't think I need to talk a lot about it because you have been hearing a lot, but it's a modern headless CMS, fully SaaS-based. This is an next-gen product by Sitecore. And it has a lot of advanced tools like Sitecore Pages, Explorer. The benefits are, the best benefit I can see is the no upgrades. You don't need to do any upgrades and don't spend your client's dollar to do something which doesn't add business value. It adds technology value, but not business value. So that's a big thing. At the same time, lower TCO, total cost of ownership with that. Yeah, and then performance scalability, it's really, really great. Because especially Experience Editor to Sitecore Pages is a big shift, and I'm sure your customers will like it when they move towards it. The resources are listed here. There are some YouTube, like thanks to Sebastian for creating a lot of content on the Sitecore Discover. So a lot of content is available, so I would request you to just get started with it.
I know that there's a little bit of a break after this session, so I don't mind going 5 minutes over, if you allow me, just to cover a couple of key concepts, and then I'll be here that we can talk more about it. In a nutshell, talking about Experience Edge. Experience Edge is nothing but, in an extreme simple, it's content as a service. It provides you content, assets, media over the edge, over a network for your front-end application. So imagine you're building a Next.js application, you want content to come from. Experience Edge connects that. And Experience Edge sits in front of a content management server. Imagine that back in the days, CDs used to deliver content. Now Experience Edge is going to deliver the content. Simple. Nothing, no request is going to come to your CM server. Everything has to go through Experience Edge. And then there is a lot of different things. Experience Edge can be used even for monolithic platforms today. Like you can use it for XP, you can use it for XM, build headless applications that way. Because why I'm saying that is important is you can start leveraging technologies for your monolithic application. And something happened, I don't know. Did I step on something? No. Fantastic. So what it's doing is, you can start leveraging. We have applications where it's monolithic platform. We have Experience Edge, and then we're building application. So what happens is, if you have a bigger application, you can take small subset of it. You can use Experience Edge, build a Next.js application, and deploy it. And I feel that obviously it allows a much more deeper functionality. I think you also have it for Content Hub, predominantly for Content Hub 1, 2. Experience Edge is used in some form or fashion. But a lot of you who don't know that, if customers have CMP, which is Content Marketing Platform, they can still build the websites. It's more comprehensive than Content Hub 1. If a customer is already having a CMP platform, they can build websites on Content Hub. Because the content marketing platform, including DAM, you have everything what you need. We have built it much more finesse, much more granular. But if you want lightweight, Content Hub 1 is there too. And Experience Edge is going to be the backbone, which is going to allow you to render that content not only through your static site generation or your server side, but also if or anything. One of the interesting things is that a lot of you, if you have Content Hub and you also have Experience Edge, a lot of the deployment platforms work on a notion of bandwidth storage, right? And then the images tend to take a lot of space. So if you have DAM or recommend DAM, I think Content Hub does have its own CDN for all of their media. It has their optimization techniques. Your Vercel is just going to deploy and reference it to the CDN, which means the total space which Vercel is going to use is going to be very less. All of your assets is going to come from Content Hub. That's one of the tips I can give to reduce your expense or footprint on Vercel by using Content Hub DAM. I would like to touch upon CDP and Personalize a little bit more because it's a core part of XP was personalization. And I think that it's one of the most solid products in the Sitecore suite. We have personally worked with it, and it can beat a lot of the competitors in the marketplace. And the biggest fact here is that for marketers, personalization can be used on Sitecore pages. You talk about Bloom Reach, you talk about Salesforce Interaction Studio, you talk about another leading products. None of them have that. Innate ability to see content and personalizing and viewing that in Visivig editor, Sitecore has it. And you don't understand that this hybrid nature is a key USP for Sitecore, that we are composable, but we are still unified. I can give a unified experience to my customers, my marketers, by designing and developing that. And it's a very low key to understand, to get into, from a developer standpoint, it's really important to understand how to ingest and export data out of CDP for the most part, and then a few terminologies. But what we are going to do is, we have listed down some resources, but our intent is this is going to be developer focused. As a developer, in order for you to know personalization in CDP, how far you need to go to understand that. And a lot of our use cases are relatively simple. We are talking about AI-based personalization, but in order to determine a true value, we are still a little bit far off from that. From what you see, realistic use cases, our intent is to share some of that as well.
Just to add one thing, Sheetal, like on the CDP, I attended the training done by Sarah. I was lucky enough to do that 5-day technical deep dive training. That is really awesome. So in case you have not done that, it is now on the available on the learning portal as well. Based on that, we also created our own training, internal training. We trained our 25 developers. And the last week, we launched our first CDP and Personalize integration on production as well. So that training is very good. It gives you a lot of hands-on knowledge and gives you confidence to build a solution which can be easily scaled.
Sarah, do you want to raise your hand? I want everyone to see Sarah here. Please ask her, CDP, Personalized Specialist, Expert, Trainer. We have gained a lot from her. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you.
What we want to do is, as I said, mark this URL. We are going to stay connected. That's a promise we're going to make today. Individually, if you have questions, we are on Sitecore Stack Exchange. We're going to share that. ask us one-on-one questions about, hey, can you give me more details on this training program? Can you give me more details? We are about community. We want to support the community. At every junction, we want to make sure that just from a scale perspective, as I said, I have 250 Sitecore-specific developers, which means that at any given point in time, I have about 40 active clients, which means the landscape of work is large, which means we have encountered a problem in some form or fashion. We would love to share that. If you're a developer looking for advice, looking for a career path, or even thinking, should I be on XM Cloud? Should I base my career in Sitecore? What do you think? I may be able to offer our perspective, like what do I think and where is the market going and how do we feel? We want to help the community. Obviously, I have been in the Sitecore ecosystem for 16 years, being an MVP for 11 years. So I feel that this is going to be an important step for us to share, support when it's needed the most to the developer community. With that being said, we're open for questions. Thank you. We have seen the end card there. I'm glad that we raced towards that, but I'll have this deck probably in 10 to 15 minutes. So you can all look at that deck. You don't have to wait for official SUGCON to give you. We are going to give you the deck. But I was sitting there, all these 10 years, and I would expect someone would give me the deck. That's what we're going to do. Thank you so much for attending. I hope you found it useful today.